Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of the Rifle Trade channel. Today I'm going to take a Tikka Ctr and 223 out to the range and do a bunch of tests with it, and I'll record it for your viewing pleasure. I noticed that there's been a lot of videos on the Tikka Ctr 223 on YouTube, and I'm no expert on these rifles except to know it's in the genre of rifle that I absolutely adore. I think they're great. This is the rifle right here. This particular one is relatively new to me. I've outfitted it with Schmidt & Bender 3 to 12 by 50. It's the classic. However, it's got the military police reticle that's in it. I think it's a custom scope. And so I'm going to take this out to the range and shoot it, do some rapid fire serials, do some precision work with different ammunition types, and I'll show you the results. It's not so much of me actually shooting the rifle per se, but just the results of it. The magazines are kind of interesting. It's essentially the same body as a 308, except they have a plastic sleeve on the inside. You can see that there. See that? And I've read on the interwebs is that it's a bit of a problem for a bunch of people. They're having all kinds of feeding problems, not just with the 223, but with the 308 as well. Maybe the canting feature of the follower, they don't like it. So a lot of people are converting these rifles over to use Accuracy International magazines, kind of a single stack kind of magazine style, very, very reliable. Except I've never had problems with the Tikka Ctr. You know, the C19 magazines, the Arctic rifles. I never had any problems with them. They never gave me any issues. So it's kind of, this is news for me. I mean, so far as not being able to feed reliably. So we'll show you some rapid fire serials, show you some accuracy, potential that I shot with the rifle. I think it's a 20-inch barrel, 1 1/8 twist. And so it should be able to handle the fairly heavy bullets, 75, 77 grain. I'll put some 75 grain Hornady projectiles through it, boat tail hollow points. Also run some 77 grain Sierra Match Kings ballistic tips through it, and some 53 grain VMAX, and some just 55 grain FMJ, just to throw into the mix. Just kind of show you what kind of groupings that I've got. And there I'll run obviously the precision portion at 12 power. What a great scope. I love the scope. But I mean, it's just an attractive utilitarian looking rifle. I just love these things. And I have to admit, it was just a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I'm a Mauser 98 Lee Enfield guy, so having to move to modern kind of newish technology. I guess it's not that new anymore, but it was a little bit stepping outside of my comfort zone, but I'm sure glad that I did. Anyway, let's roll the footage and show you what happened. So group number 1 is right in the middle, and this is 55 grain Chinese Norinco ammunition. That was a fouling shot. This is actually the first shots out of the rifle, brand spanking new. So that was a fouling shot and followed up with five rounds. So that's about 1.5 inch group for 5 rounds. That's the Norinco 55 grain 223, which is not good quality ammunition. It's not. Group number 2 is Frontier 75 grain. It's got a 75 grain Hornady hollow point boat tail made by Hornady, this Frontier ammunition. I've shot this stuff in the Remington 700 LTR many years ago, and so I just wanted to run the same ammunition in this test as I did back then. So that's the Frontier 75 grain boat tail hollow point match with the Hornady bullet. This here is group number 3, running IMI Israeli mil-spec brass, and that's that's a hand load of mine, 24.5 grains of Varget. That's a compressed load, and that's a 77 grain Sierra Match King ballistic point. So that's good. That's a good load. You can put a loony over that. The rifle is hot by this point, by the way. So that's 5, 6, that's 11 rounds. The rifle is hot. A little bit of mirage, but also you'll notice that the group is kind of moving back and forth this way rather than a nice kind of a clover leaf. And the reason for that is because I just had something to eat and my heart was pounding pretty good, and it was every time my heart would go off, it's moving to the left and right, and I can see that in the crosshairs. This is at 12 power. Group number 4. This here is again about 1.25 inches. That there is a Hornady Superformance Varmint, and that's a 53 grain VMAX bullet. I found that it seems to shoot pretty good in AR-15s, shoots good in pretty much everything. But again, the rifle's getting super hot by this point in time. I moved it over a couple clicks, and I shot this with really super cheap American Eagle 223. That's the 55 grain full metal jacket boat tail, and so that's I blew that shot. I called that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4 doesn't mean, you know, it's just. I always thought it was the. It's interesting. That seems to shoot about as good as it does out of an AR-15, just a bog standard 20-inch 1 7 twist H-bar. It's shooting the same out of the Tikka. I was surprised. I was expecting it to shoot a little bit better, and I was really focusing on this grouping because I did blow that shot. You'll see predominantly it's grouping to the right just a little bit. Just playing around the groups and not really focusing on the precision part, just the accuracy part. But you know, I was actually surprised. I was expecting groups more like this throughout, and but I'm reasonably surprised by the Norinco, and I was expecting a little bit better with the 77 grain Sierra Match Kings. I'm going to keep shooting some more, and I know that it can do better than that. I just want to double check. Anyway, that's just kind of an update on the accuracy part of the CTR. Okay, so this is just going to be a bit of a mag dump, and 20 rounds, 2 magazines. Let's just test the magazines out, see how well they feed. Now, there's been a bunch of criticism about these magazines, saying they're having feeding issues. I've not experienced any of that, but you never know until you try it. So 2 fully loaded 10 round mags at 200 meters. This isn't really going to be about precision, but running of the rifle. We're running really, really cheap ammunition out of this rifle right now. Okay. Let's do it. Super cheap Norinco surplus ammunition. It's just not good at all. Yeah, so fairly inconsistent ammunition. Sometimes it's difficult to get the bolt down on it because it's, you know, it's the dimensions of the brass are not good. Anyhow, 20 rounds, quick succession, not a lot of aiming involved here. All of the brass is sitting in a beautiful pile. There's 20 rounds right there to the rear and to the right, about 1.5 meters. Should be fairly easy to clean up. It's not kicking them out in all different directions. So I don't have any problems with the magazines. So what do you think? Is a Tikka Ctr and 223 the rifle for you? Or is it just one of those, yeah, maybe the caliber isn't right for you, maybe you want something else? Let me tell you is that for me, the 223 for me is my coyote rifle. You know, for working with predators, whether you're on a farm or whether you're managing predators in a wilderness setting, trying to retain your ungulate species, deer, moose, elk, those kinds of animals. The coyotes have a tremendous impact on population dynamics for ungulates. So having a rifle that is not only just designed in order to be able to harvest game, for example deer, a 223 would be fine for deer, or also predators, conceivably from coyotes to wolves even. And so the caliber is very capable of doing those kinds of things. I mean, certainly you got to be able to choose your ammunition wisely. A lot of people like to look at the 223 Remington as something that you'll shoot gophers with. But depending on kind of what load you use, it is capable of much more. Probably when it comes to wolves, 243 might be a kind of a better caliber for especially a big dog like that. But the 223 will do it, depending on kind of where you are in the range, distance to target, and so on. So terminal ballistics being what it is, and the right bullet for the right job. But I mean, for example, nozzler partitions can be shot out of a 223. I'm running a 77 grain Sierra Match King that is ballistic tip. That's my coyote load. And even though the 1-inch group, 5 rounds on the target that I showed you isn't particularly impressive, you also have to think about the shooter. I know that load will shoot beautifully out of this rifle. Anyway, being that as it may, what is kind of the combination, what is the philosophy that you have in mind for a rifle like this, and why would you want that rifle? What kind of use are you going to apply to it? Is it because you're buying the rifle because you're a little bit recoil shy? If you, as you look in the footage that I've provided you, this thing is not kicking at all. I mean, really, it's not. So maybe that's something that would attract you to the rifle. It's very, very easy to manipulate the bolt. It's just a fast rifle. It's accurate. But there is kind of one part of it that I think is a little bit tricky, and that is the weight of the rifle. So I mean, for example, I've retrofitted the same rifle with a bit of a different scope. So let's just kind of take the mag out. Sorry, I'm getting eaten by mosquitoes out here. As you can see here, I've got a little 1:4 Leupold on there, Mod 1 with adjustable turrets. That's actually set for 55 grain 223 ammunition with a kind of a cam built into the turret, and I can easily adjust for windage on this scope as well. This is a great little scope. Now it's not going to give me kind of the detail that I need for precision work, and yeah, this rifle is capable of good precision, as you've seen. So, but why have a scope like this on there? Well, I'm telling you, man, it's not really, even though it's a compact tactical rifle, it's not really a lightweight rifle. It's not heavy per se, but it's not lightweight. And so having a great big Schmidt and Bender, steel and lots of glass, I mean, that's an awful lot more weight you're adding to the rifle. So having kind of a lightweight scope on a rifle like this is maybe a good idea. I mean, another example here would be this Premier Reticles modified Leupold. This is a 2 to 6 by 33, I think. This is what I use on my number 4 Mark 1T Sniper. This is a Premier Reticles scope. See there? Anyway, so there's a different reticle that's built in here you can't get from Leupold, but I mean, this might be a good scope for a rifle like this. It's not too big, not too bulky, it doesn't weigh much. It's going to be great in the elements. If it gets wet, you're not worried about it. It's completely sealed. It's going to be a great scope for this purpose. And you're going to get pretty darn good accuracy, up to 6 power. Some of the small, close to medium range scopes these days are just amazing scope technology compared to what they were even just 10 years ago. Is what you can get today, whether it's even a 1-inch tube or a 30mm tube or a 34mm tube. But the higher up you go in the tube diameter, so of course you're getting into the heavier weights again for your optical sights. So what is the compromise for a rifle like this? So what I can tell you though is that the The barrels on here are very heavy, being only a .223 diameter bullet that's passing through this thing. That's an awful lot of steel. At the muzzle right here, this is 0.79 inches. Okay, it's basically the same diameter as the .308 barrel, except there's a lot more meat on this barrel because there's only a .223 hole going down through the middle of it. So, I mean, you got to think about stuff like that. This is essentially a heavier rifle than the .308 version of it because there's so much more steel in the barrel. And so you maybe a compromise in the optical department, something that's less, not quite as heavy, maybe that makes a lot of sense. Now, I mean, if you're going to be packing this thing, putting it into a snowmobile skimmer, and then, you know, heading 20 miles in a snowmobile in the middle of winter, going down an old road to an area where you know there's wolves and coyotes, and maybe on a power line or on the edge of a lake, out in the middle of nowhere, managing for predators, or if you're on a farm and you got to get on a snowmobile or you know, plow out a road to get to where you need to be because the wolves and the coyotes are pestering your cattle, then yeah, obviously the weight of the rifle is something that you're going to take into consideration because you're going to be carrying it, you're going to be fielding it, you're going to be transporting it. It's got to be robust, it's got to be resilient, it's going to be receiving impacts, maybe in a skimmer behind your snowmobile. So you want to have a system that you can rely on. Well, I'm telling you is that this might be the philosophy of use for a rifle like this. And you know, when it comes to precision rifles, nothing that I really showed you in this video really says that this is really a precision rifle per se, although I think it is capable of very, very good precision. A lot of people can dump a lot of money into you know, custom actions, upgrading this, upgrading that, upgrading the stock, upgrading your magazine system. You know what, for the price they're not that bad and they come pretty darn close. Okay, so I think it's kind of an interesting compromise of a whole bunch of different genres of rifles that are precision, kind of field use, hunting use, kind of all built into one package, and it's a really interesting rifle. I love the Tikka Ctr. I know that a lot of you out there do too. And, you know, maybe it's something worth trying. I mean, it depends what you want to use it for. Anyway, that's it, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. Cheers, and as always, Maple Leaf up.